actress Anne Hathaway appeared to insist on Wednesday that the Alabama lawmakers who sponsored and signed into law legislation restricting most abortions in the state are complicit in the death of black women. Yes, the anti-abortion movement is primarily about controlling women's bodies under the premise, for many, sincere, of saving lives, and yes, this law is primarily the work of white men. However, a white woman sponsored the bill and a white woman signed it into law, the Oscar winner's lengthy Instagram message began. The Alabama abortion bill was sponsored by State Representative Terry Collins, R., and signed into law by Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, R., both of whom are women. And those women, according to Anne Hathaway, and the state's new law will result in the death of poor women, many of whom will be black. As we're resisting, let us also call out the complicity of the white women who made this awful moment possible, and which, make no mistake, will lead to the unnecessary and avoidable deaths of women, a disproportionate number of whom will be poor and or black, the Ocean's 8 star said, before urging her 14 million followers to speak up. Show up. Don't give up and donate to pro-abortion causes. Hathaway is but the latest Hollywood A-lister to bash the abortion laws being passed in some state from their social media platforms. Her missive is also eerily similar to activist model Emily Ratajkowski, who last week insisted that states enforcing abortion restrictions are disproportionately hurting black women as a means to perpetuate the industrial prison complex. The laws, the most hotly debated being Georgia's and Alabama's, have kicked off boycotts from a handful of Hollywood studios and stars pledging to pull film production projects from the state. This week, Saturday Night Live alum and actor Kristen Wiig announced that she's halting production of her film, Barb and star Go to Vista Del Mar in Georgia. Similarly, J.J. Abrams and Jordan Peele pledged to continue filming their new HBO drama in Georgia but plan to donate profits from the project to pro-abortion causes in the state. Actor-director Ron Howard also threatened to pull his film projects in Georgia if the law is upheld. Another federal judge appointed by Barack Obama has ruled that House Democrats can subpoena President Donald Trump's personal and business finance records, with Wednesday's decision from New York following on the heels of a similar Monday ruling from a court in Washington, D.C. House Democrats are pursuing members of the president's family and private family-owned businesses, demanding banking records and financial statements. As part of this partisan attack strategy, two committees in the U.S. House of Representatives controlled by Democrats, the Financial Services Committee and the Select Committee on Intelligence, issued subpoenas to Deutsche Bank and Capital One Bank for at least 10 years of records involving President Trump's children, the children's spouses, and various family businesses including the Trump Organization. Those committees are led by two of the most partisan actors in Congress. Representative Maxine Waters chairs the Finance Committee and Representative Adam Schiff chairs the Intelligence Committee. Both California Democrats have been outspoken in their fierce opposition to the president. Waters was among the first Democrats demanding the president's impeachment. Schiff claimed to have evidence that President Trump colluded with the Russians, though he has refused to produce such evidence and special counsel Robert Mueller found none. The Trump family hired the powerhouse boutique law firm Kinsavoy McCarthy Park to fight the subpoenas in court. Lead counsel William Kinsavoy, a former law clerk to Justice Clarence Thomas and a rising conservative star in national legal circles, filed suit in federal district court in New York City, seeking a preliminary injunction to block the subpoenas. On Wednesday, Judge Edgardo Ramos denied the request for an injunction. Ramos wrote in his 25-page opinion that these subpoenas are part of the power of Congress to conduct investigations, inherent in the legislative process. This is the second such ruling this week. The House Oversight Committee subpoenaed accounting records on Donald Trump's personal finances and business records held by an accounting company. On Monday, Judge Amit Mehta ruled that subpoena is likewise valid. In both cases, House Democrats argued that they wanted these records merely to inform their decision on whether to strengthen federal ethics and disclosure laws. Kinsavoy's team argued that the Democrats' argument is a pretext covering their true motivation of seeking to embarrass and politically damage the president. Both Ramos and Mehta were appointed by Barack Obama. Ramos's decision will now go to the Second Circuit Appeals Court, and the president's lawyers will appeal the other decision to the D.C. Circuit Appeals Court. These cases' fate is uncertain in both appellate courts, which are currently left of center in terms of judicial philosophy. One or more of these cases could end up before the Supreme Court. A third lawsuit, seeking to keep House Democrats from obtaining President Trump's personal tax returns from almost a decade ago when he was a private citizen, is also expected, likely in the near future. The case in the May 20 ruling is Trump v. Committee on Oversight and Reform of the U.S. House, number 19 CV 1136 in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. The case in the May 22 ruling is Trump v. Deutsche Bank, number 19 CV 3826 in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. During an interview broadcast on Wednesday's broadcast of CNN's Cuomo Primetime, Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin, D.E.L., said there is an obviously strong obstruction of justice case against President Trump. Host Chris Cuomo asked Durbin where he stands on impeachment. Durbin responded, "I can tell you, the case is obviously strong. When it comes to obstruction of justice, read the Mueller report. It's pretty clear that this president, time and time again, was involved in conduct that was carefully choreographed, but still crossed the line into obstruction." Durbin added that he doesn't believe there are 67 senators who would support impeachment, but the House should continue its investigation. Wednesday on MSNBC's Hardball, Representative Maxine Waters, DCA, said Congress would not allow President Donald Trump to use infrastructure to blackmail Congress to stop investigations into him and his administration. Waters said, "I was concerned about the fact that he even pretended that he was going to negotiate with the Speaker and with Schumer about infrastructure. I never trusted him and, of course, it turns out, today he's made up an excuse about why not going to proceed with them on infrastructure and, basically, blackmailing them and talking about if you want to get infrastructure, you got to stop all investigations. I think that's outrageous. But that's typical of the President of the United States. And I never trusted that he was going to get infrastructure done." She continued, "If he's simply going to leverage it and use it to threaten Nancy Pelosi and Schumer in exchange for quitting all of the investigations, well, we got a problem. We have a real problem because we're not going to allow him to intimidate or threaten us." Wednesday on CNN's The Lead, Democratic presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders, IVT, said it was time for the House Judiciary Committee to begin impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump. Sanders said, "To be very honest with you, Jake, I am not sure that this president may not want to be impeached. He may think that it works for him politically. I don't know that, but it wouldn't shock me. I think he is a 100% political animal. Doesn't spend a whole lot of time worrying about healthcare or education, certainly not about climate change. So I don't know what goes on in his mind." He added, "But I think if he continues to not understand the Constitution of the United States, the separation of powers, the fact that the Congress has every right to subpoena, and it is the job of the administration to attend the hearings that the Congress is calling, if he doesn't understand that, it may well be time for an impeachment inquiry to begin. Where the Judiciary Committee begins to determine whether or not there are grounds for impeachment." Wednesday on MSNBC's Deadline, White House, host Nicole Wallace said President Donald Trump might be losing it psychologically after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, DCA, accused him of a cover-up. Wallace said, "Donald Trump's 'I don't do cover-ups' is an undeniable echo of Richard Nixon's 'I'm not a crook' defense. With the stakes potentially just as high for his presidency." Discussing the Speaker's remarks, Wallace added, "In his mind, he's got some bond with her, whether real or imagined. Where she has good manners, he thinks she treats him with respect. She does treat him with respect. And it really seemed to unravel him psychologically for her to accuse him of a cover-up first thing this morning." Mark Levin, author of Unfreedom of the Press, described Silicon Valley's dominant progressive ideology as hostile to America's Declaration of Independence and Constitution, offering his analysis of political and partisan censorship deployed by technology companies such as Google, Facebook, and Twitter in a Thursday interview on SiriusXM's Breitbart News Daily with host Alex Marlow. "Why do I think that Silicon Valley is conducting itself the way that it does?" asked Levin. "Because this is the way the progressive left works. They do not tolerate diversity. They do not tolerate independent thinkers. They do not tolerate anyone who opposes their view." Levin continued, "Remember, progressivism is about a very destructive ideology that runs counter the Declaration of Independence. We talk about natural rights. We talk about unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They reject this." Levin added, "When you read about the progressives, Woodrow Wilson and John Dewey and the rest, they reject the Declaration of Independence, they reject the Constitution. Their politicians and their progeny pretend that they support these things. These people in Silicon Valley, they don't embrace our history, and they're not capitalists. Let's make that abundantly clear. They don't believe in competition. Levin referenced George Gilder's prediction in Life After Google that new technological platforms will displace the status quo of social media as provided by Google's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. They're going to go the way of the landline telephones, said Levin, quoting Gilder. This is why I embrace technology, by the way, remarked Levin. Because the way you get out of monopolies and the way you get out of government control, and the way you get out of despotism, generally, is through ideas and creativity and progress, human progress. Great innovation and creativity of the American mind is somehow going to find a way out of this, estimated Levin. Levin concluded by praising dissident news media outlets challenging left-wing and partisan Democrat orthodoxy pushed by news media outlets such as CNN, MSNBC, The New York Times, and The Washington Post. These behemoths needs to be competed against, and that's what we do, said Levin of Blaze TV. Whether it is digital TV, whether it is websites, whether it's talk radio, podcasts, or whatever it is, the more the merrier, that's my attitude. We're prepared to compete. They are not, which is why they are ideologically bound to a tyrannical ideology. We've got to keep fighting them, and keep exposing them.